Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Homegrown Hopes podcast. Today, I am joined by a dear friend of mine, Christy Richman. Christy is a registered nurse, and we've been friends for the better part of like 8 years, I think,
Almost a
8 to 10.
decade. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going on a decade. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
Christy is like my natural wellness guru. She is the person that I send all of my weird questions to at crazy hours, like, why is my eye twitching? And, you know, all of the things. And you have been such a integral part of my wellness journey over the last decade and kind of pivoting to more natural approaches. So I'm so excited to have you on today. Do you want to share a little bit of your background?
Thank you so much. Yes, definitely. So like Caitlin said, I am a lover of all things natural wellness. I'm a registered nurse of almost 14 years now. And so trained very conventionally, brought up very conventionally, and really got introduced into the natural health world. Just, I won't say by accident, because really I don't believe anything happens by accident, but it was through my own health journey and just something quickly that I Googled um, on the internet looking for answers to my gut issues that I was having at the time. And that just opened up a whole world of natural wellness and options that I didn't know were out there. So that's kind of how I got into it. But over the last decade and a little bit more than that has just been this journey for me of, you know, blazing a path forward for my own wellness and my own healing, but then at the same time helping others as I was learning. And that has transformed into a beautiful functional medicine business. And I get to work alongside with people as they're healing their gut and their nervous system and really wanting to approach medicine or really wanting to approach healing from that root cause perspective. And it's such a blessing. It's one of the favorite things I get to do every day. I'm a wife and a mom of three. I have a 12, 11, and 18-month-old, and we homeschool as well. And we absolutely love every bit of our home life. I get to work from home 100% of the time, and we get to homeschool, and like we're home all the time. So
Yes.
the homegrown thing, right? I really truly get that.
If you've felt the pull to slow down, to create and cultivate a more homegrown life that's simple and fulfilling, and to truly enjoy the magic of ordinary days, then friend, you found your place. I'm Caitlin. I'm a barefoot, Blue Ridge, homegrown mama, and this is the Homegrown Hopes podcast. We'll chat about everything from gardening and scratch cooking to homeschooling and motherhood. With some sarcasm sprinkled in, of course, because I am my daddy's daughter, and Lord knows I'm fluent in that. Just know that whatever it is we're discussing, I am by no means an expert, and I'll never claim to be. I'm just sharing my experiences, the good and the bad, and making the most of the little moments in between. I'm so excited you're here, and so humbled that you've chosen to follow along and hopefully join me in cultivating our homegrown hopes.
And
Yeah, we've connected about this topic a lot over the years because when you and I first became friends, we were both working full time and we had such a conviction on our hearts to be home with our children. Not that we'll go, that's a whole episode for a whole other day, but it's just amazing to see how the journey progresses and how things fall into place.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. So do you want to share a little bit of your background, like in conventional medicine, and how you made that transition to functional?
Yeah, sure. So my conventional nursing background started out in the emergency room. I did that right out of nursing school. I absolutely loved everything about it. It was fast paced. It was crazy, but it was, I think, one of the best learning grounds for me. It's kind of building a foundation of just caring for people in that setting, but also just I got to see a lot of um, not disease process, like disease processes like playing out over long times, but really quick, like little snippets into all these different things that people deal with. And so after I moved on from the ER after about 6 years, I moved into endocrinology. And there for the next 5 or 6 years, I got to really deep dive into all of these things I saw people come in the ER with. And so then in endocrinology, we were dealing with things like diabetes, thyroid disorders, calcium metabolism issues, brain tumors, all these hormone issues. Just really endocrinology just kind of encompassed basically the entire body, right? Because hormones are such a player in every body
Oh,
system.
yeah.
Um, that's my main background. I did a couple other things in there, but those two were my main focuses and my main background as far as my conventional nursing goes. And then my own struggles, like I said, with my gut health. And then eventually I had this big autoimmune cascade of things happen. That journey for me, once I couldn't find the help that I needed in the conventional model, that is what actually led me to searching out other options. And then I realized, wow, there's a lot more that I could be doing for myself. Just habit wise, lifestyle wise, diet wise, that I didn't even know was an option. I didn't even know existed. And those things weren't being presented to me as potential options from the conventional model either. So I started digging and I started doing my own research. I'm a huge researcher, a huge learner, and I wanted to find out what the very root cause of what I was dealing with. What was it? And so that eventually led me into the world of natural wellness. And like I said, as I was learning myself, I was teaching other people about it. Using things like herbs and essential oils and diet to heal my body. And eventually it just grew to this place where now I'm helping a ton of people every day, meeting with people every day, helping them to journey, through their own wellness, because a lot of people are realizing, the conventional model will get me so far and is very helpful. And they have a lot of things, I still refer people out to conventional doctors. Sometimes if there's things outside of my scope that I can't help the patient with, then I'll definitely still refer them out. I love, nurses and doctors have been my people for a long time. Right. And so I still love them, still appreciate them and what they have to offer and their knowledge and expertise. But as far as approaching actual healing and not just symptom managing, I really wanted to get to the root cause of my issues. And I find that a lot of people really want to do the same thing, right? They're tired of the band-aids. They're tired of just managing symptoms, but they're really looking for that root cause answer. And so that's how I've come to approach healing and medicine, I guess, quote unquote, if you will. That's how that's kind of my journey up to where I am now and how I approach wellness.
Okay. And that was one of my next questions is like, what is the major difference in your opinion between functional medicine and conventional? I think you've answered it. It's pretty much the root cause, getting to the root issue there and not just slapping a band-aid on it. Because I feel like so often, it's so easy, not that there is not a place for Western medicine. Let me preface the, for conventional medicine, it's a huge blessing. But I feel like so often, in my experience anyway, it was almost just like there just wasn't time. There wasn't time to get to the root cause. It was just kind of this will make you feel better for now.
Right.
Yeah. But not long-term necessarily.
Right. And that translates to frustration on the patient's part. It really does. I mean, I was a frustrated patient initially when, when I was just being given kind of those band-aid options or those just, oh, here, try this or here, try that and come back in 3 or 4 weeks and let's see if that's helpful, really without much explanation as to what we were trying to accomplish. And, really, really even further, my question was, what is going on with my body? Like, why is my body acting this way? And so those were the questions that stayed in the back of my mind as I was seeking help from the conventional model initially. And really the questions that lingered until I started to be introduced into some of these root cause diagnostic tools that I use now in my own practice that are just, they're absolutely phenomenal. And I'm sure we'll talk about those at some point in the podcast.
I want to.
Yeah. But the real difference between conventional medicine and more holistic approach or functional medicine is really how you go about treating the patient and how the very fundamental thing that you're looking for and that you're looking at. So a conventional approach to looking at hormones, let's say, for example, is taking a history of the patient, seeing what their symptoms are, and then ordering some labs, some blood work, looking at a hormone profile, right? So we're going to look at the thyroid. We're going to look at the ovaries. If it's a man, we're going to look at the testosterone and a bunch of different hormones for each male or female. So we're going to start with labs, right? We're going to look at the blood. We're going to see what hormone levels are in the blood. And that's typically where they would start. And I won't even say that's not where I would start with the functional medicine side of things. A lot of times I will. A lot of times we need a baseline on the thyroid. We have to know how it's functioning. Is the pituitary communicating with the thyroid so that the thyroid will then make the free T4 that it needs to make? Or, is the adrenal gland functioning, or are the adrenal glands functioning properly to communicate with all these other things that they communicate with? So a baseline of labs is absolutely necessary, really on both sides. But from the functional perspective, that's not where we're going to stop. Serum labs are not the end all be all. Okay. And what I found in conventional medicine is that's basically, aside from some diagnostic tests that they can do, like ultrasounds and CT scans and MRIs and things like that, the labs are pretty much the end all be all in conventional medicine. That is the gold standard of testing. Okay. And with functional medicine, we look at the person as a whole. We don't look at them as just this pile of symptoms. We look at their lifestyle. We look at their history. We look at their relationships. We look at their sleeping patterns. We look at their diet. We look at all these things that are so much a part of a person that conventional medicine typically kind of skips over or really doesn't even.
Well, they don't have the time.
Right. The time is
they don't have the time and I don't think that's necessarily taught in school. It's not the focus.
Yeah. If it is, it's just a really small, section of the lesson, but the bigger focus is either the disease process, talking about what the disease is or how to treat it conventionally with pharmaceuticals. So, that's the majority of how the conventional model looks at it. But from the functional standpoint, we're literally taking that whole person into account and what they do on a daily basis to invest in their health, whether it's how they're eating, how they're moving, how they're sleeping, any of those things. All of those things matter in a huge, huge way.
Right.
And with
Duh.
medicine, right?
Don't you like that? They're like, oh, everything we do is connected to our health.
Exactly.
How about that? What a concept.
I know. And it's something that our culture is very misled about. People are thinking that, as long as I maybe eat a vegetable every once in a while, or if I, take a walk here and there or whatever, I'll be okay. Right. Or if I listen to my doctor. I think that's the big one that I hear and that I've seen a lot in the past is if I just listen to my doctor and do what he says, then I'll be okay. That's the great lie of medicine. That's the great lie of wellness and health is if I just listen to my doctor, I'm going to be fine. And we put our full faith in that doctor. We put our full faith in that practitioner. And in doing so, we really strip ourselves of that empowerment that we innately possess, that we have. We strip ourselves of that empowerment. And it says, I'm going to take my responsibility for my body. I'm going to take my responsibility for my diet, for my exercise, for my mental well-being, for all of these things. And I'm going to put it on somebody else and expect them to take care of it for me. When it's just not possible.
No one's ever going to be as invested in your health as you are.
Exactly.
They can't.
Exactly. And
no matter how amazing of a doctor it is. Right. You have to be the one kind of rowing that ship. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We have to be the ones putting forth the most effort for our own wellness, right? The doctor is not going to be able to do it. He or she is very limited, or practitioner, whoever it is, they're very limited. Like you said, limited on time. They're limited on resources. Sometimes they're seeing tons of patients a day that all have their own, list of issues. And there's only so much of them to be able to help each person. So this is one of my soapboxes. And so this is probably going to take up a huge part of the podcast. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
But that's, yeah, those are things that are different about the conventional model and the functional model. And really what I love so much, because I just have this deep love for people, I love looking at the person as a whole. And
That is so you. You're one
it
of the
is.
most compassionate people that I have ever met in my life. And you just truly care about people. So I can't think of a better person to be doing this. Like,
That
there's
means
no
a
one
lot.
else I would want to talk to about my issues, because I know, like, you take it into your own, you really care.
I really appreciate that. That's
You do.
very sweet. It's just who I am. I can't deny it. I've tried to leave it over the years. Like, oh my
You're
gosh,
very
why?
relational. We've talked about this.
Right. And I'm like, why do I care so much? But it's just something the Lord has just given me. And I really do care about the whole person. And when we are trying to get to the root cause of whatever issue it is for that person, you have to consider that. You have to think about not just the fact that they're this big bundle of symptoms and it might be kind of stressful for you to wade through with them. You have to think about what's going on for them at that very deepest level. And so that's where some of the root cause diagnostic tools come in that I absolutely love. But
So let's talk about those. Do you want to
yeah.
jump into that? I would love to hear, like, you've mentioned that a couple of times. What does a session with you look like? How does that go?
Yeah. So honestly, I need, I don't know, I'm thinking about like making myself a shirt or something like that, or a hat that
You need
says,
some merch.
yeah, I need some merchandise, at least just for myself, that says everyone needs a GI map. Okay. Like
Okay.
a shirt that says everybody
Okay.
needs a
It would
GI map.
certainly raise questions.
Yeah, right. Or you, like if I meet with somebody over Zoom, like a shirt that says you are getting a GI map. So okay,
Yeah.
so let me tell you.
This season of the Homegrown Hopes podcast is brought to you by RANNSAK. That's RANNSAK, RANNSAK. And this company, it's really unique. It is a family-owned and veteran-owned company. It was started by my sister-in-law and her husband, and I absolutely love the idea behind this. So this is the first of its kind. It is a peer-to-peer rental marketplace. And basically what that means is you can rent out the items that you have laying around your house collecting dust. I mean, think about all of the stuff that is in your garage or in your basement. I know I personally, since we are in the process of moving into our forever home and we've been living small for 2 years, it's unbelievable how much stuff we have that we very rarely use. We don't want to get rid of it because we need it once or twice a year. The rest of the year, it's collecting dust. And what RANNSAK does is it gives you the opportunity to make money off of the items that you have sitting around. And on the flip side of that, if you're someone who needs an item just for the weekend or for a special project, you can rent that item from your local peers and not have to purchase it and then leave it sitting around your basement to collect dust. So some of the items that are available to rent on their website: kayaks, paddle boards, tools, camping supplies, hiking supplies. I live in an area that has a ton of natural resources and mountain biking trails and hiking trails and lakes and rivers and all of the things. And it's really nice to have the opportunity to rent the equipment for a new hobby and see if it's actually something that you're interested in and want to invest in before you buy all of the equipment up front and then decide, you know what, maybe I'm not a mountain biker. So if this is something that sounds interesting to you, please go check out their website, because I just think it's the most amazing concept. Just a wonderful way to, one, earn money, earn extra money on the stuff that you have laying around, two, save money by not having to purchase tons of equipment that you may not need or just renting it for the times that you do need it. And then also it has the really unique benefit of reducing consumerism. Think about how much stuff we buy that, like I said, we really don't need all the time. How much better would it be to just rent it, use it when you need it, and then send it back? So I just absolutely love this concept. If you are interested in learning more about their business, please be sure to visit their website. Again, that is RANNSAK.com, RANNSAK.
What that is.
No
So
questions
GI
asked.
map.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody really needs to, when I approach anybody's, laundry list of symptoms or whatever it is that's going on with them, the first thing in my mind is this a root cause in the gut? Is this a root cause in the gut? And majority of the time it is, like almost 100% of the time it is. And I mentioned this on another podcast I was on a couple weeks ago, but even back when all of the sophisticated research and, all these things that we can do today to prove what we now know, didn't exist. Back in the 3rd century, Hippocrates said, all disease begins in the gut. Everything happens from the gut, right?
Yes.
He knew that
Yes.
just from studying the human anatomy, from everything that he invested himself in and devoted his life's work to. He knew that and didn't have all of these, fancy tests. He didn't have the GI map. He didn't have all of these, labs and things like that to be able to go from. But just looking at people's symptoms, looking at people, what they ate, looking at their lifestyle and all these things, he really approached medicine from a functional standpoint. He's like,
It's amazing.
He's the father of medicine, but I would even just go further and say he's the father of functional medicine, because he was really looking at the whole person.
Yeah,
But
and this is not a new thing. Like, I feel like it's
no,
one of those
not at all.
fads where we're going the holistic way, and gut health is a very
Right.
trending subject right now,
It
but
is.
it's not
It
new.
is.
It's just
Right.
new to us because
Yeah.
we've gotten so far in the other direction. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, it's really coming back to the very core of how the body works, where everything comes from. So the gut houses 80% of the immune system, and it controls literally everything about your body. It controls not just what you're eating, not just how you're absorbing what you're eating, not just how much water you're absorbing, and then your body's able to use it. It controls your mental state. It controls your neurotransmitters. So there's certain good bacteria that live in your gut that should be there. And if they're there in proper amounts, then majority of the time people aren't going to struggle with certain mental disorders and dopamine issues or serotonin issues and things like that. There's certain bacteria that regulate the carbohydrates that we take and that we eat, and then how our metabolisms use those carbohydrates. There's certain bacteria that produce B vitamins, and
Wow.
they produce all kinds of really great things for our body, as long as they have the right kinds of food themselves. And so that's where our diet comes into play. We have to be feeding this beautifully complex, like, we can't even fully explain how it works. We know a little bit. Like, I would say we probably know 1 or 2% of really how the gut works, right? There's just so much unknown about it. But what we do know is that it's beautifully complex. It is, it's this network of mutualistic relationship between certain bacterias. There's different families of bacterias, not just one. There's not just one bacteria in our gut. There are so many different kinds, and then there's billions and trillions of each kind. And as long as they're in the proper levels and they're balanced, the whole gut health is really about balance, right? As long as they're balanced and there's not any bad overgrowth of bad bacteria that have come in and started to wreak havoc, as long as there's not any overgrowth of bad and there's balance with the good, and then there's good gut lining integrity, then the gut and the body functions as they're supposed to. But where we start to see issues with people, and what we identify on the GI map, is we see people have overgrowth of these bad microbes. So things like H. pylori, strep, staph, morganella, pseudomonas. I mean, there's just citrobacter. There's so many of them that we see people have, and they produce certain toxins, and those toxins, especially in someone who has leaky gut, which is things in the GI tract being able to get through this, what should be a just semi-permeable membrane in the gut, which means things from your food food and water are supposed to be able to pass through after they're digested and turned into those micronutrients. Those should be able to go through and to get into your bloodstream to be used, for energy. But things like large proteins from gluten, casein and lactose from dairy, things like viruses, things like bad bacteria, toxins from bad bacteria, all those things should not get through that semi-permeable membrane, which is known as the gut lining, right?
Yes.
And when they do, when there's a breakdown in that mucus layer, and when they get through into your bloodstream, your body goes on high alert. And there's this whole cascade of, there's a whole inflammatory cascade that happens. And so that's when we start to see people have things like allergies and asthma. I have some people who have severe anaphylactic reactions to certain foods and certain environmental factors. And even all the way to like inflammation caused, or inflammation that presents as like rheumatoid arthritis or high blood pressure, high cholesterol, all those things are traceable back to the gut. And there's usually a gut barrier issue. And then there's usually at least one, if not more, I usually see more than one overgrowth of bad bacteria, yeast, fungus, or parasites that are contributing to all of that inflammation.
Wow.
So
because when you think of gut health, I think of like diverticulitis or something stomach related, but everything is related to that. I mean, you just named off so many different health issues that people probably would not think to trace that back to your gut.
Right. Exactly. And really at the root of all of it, at the root of all the, all the disease is inflammation. So it doesn't matter what disease it is, whether it's cancer or whether it's, seasonal allergies, it doesn't matter. It's inflammation is at the root of it. And that inflammation is always stemming from the gut as the very root cause of it. And so that's how we approach healing people. We don't just keep managing the symptoms. We don't just keep trying to band-aid the symptoms with here, try this, here, try that. We get to the very core and the very root and we fix it from there. So basically, you can look at it instead of healing from the outside in or the top down, we're healing from the inside out or the bottom up.
Which is obviously going to have long-term benefits.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's actual healing and not masking.
Yes, absolutely. It really is. Okay. And that's what people are looking for. That's what I wanted myself, right? That's why I started to pursue with every ounce of energy I had, that I really wanted to heal. I didn't want to be chronically ill. I didn't want to be able to keep up with my kids or, be able to do this, my passion with nursing. There's years that I couldn't do this because I could hardly get out of bed every day. And I had such chronic pain and such chronic issues. I just couldn't. And so I knew I didn't want to live like that. And I know there's so many people out there looking for answers that don't want to live like that. And so when you say that fixing the root issue is setting you up for, avoiding chronic disease in the future, that's exactly right. It's an investment into your health right now and in the short term, because this kind of healing, I mean, it doesn't take forever, right? These.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Like when you say billions of bacteria and all this stuff, it can sound a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
Especially to someone coming into this for the first time. But so we've done the GI map. Yeah. How do you go from there? Like we know what the issue is. Then what? What's the practical steps here?
Yeah. So we have certain natural things that we use for, like, let's say there's an overgrowth of H. pylori, which is a really common upper GI bacterium that alters the stomach acid. And it really just creates the prime environment for bad bacteria and yeast and parasites to overgrow in the small and large intestine. And they just contribute to inflammation and they just create lots of problems, right? So with treating H. pylori, we will use certain, like I said, natural things like we'll use a specialized probiotic, we'll use special herbs, we'll use even pharmaceutical grade essential oils to get rid of the H. pylori. And when we're killing off any kind of bacteria or yeast or parasites, I always take a very conservative approach. I almost said conventional. It's not a conventional approach.
Wait a minute.
It's a very conservative approach because we have to consider a lot of people's immune function is very low in a lot of these people, and we have to address that first. We have to address the immune function first. And so we do that with some specialized supplementation, some nervous system rewiring and things like that. And they do really well when we support those body systems first. We are also supporting detox pathways in that first phase as well. And then we have a kill phase where we will actually target those bad bacteria or whatever overgrowth we find. And not everybody has overgrowth, but majority of the people do. I would say 90% or more of people that I see have some kind of opportunistic bacterial, fungal, or parasitic overgrowth. And that's bound to happen when the immune function is compromised and when there's not balance with those good and bad bacteria, or with those good bacteria, when there's not that balance there. If they're high or low, either way, they're not doing their job that they should be for you. And it leaves room for those bad bacteria that we come in contact with through our food, through water, through the air, through our surfaces. I mean, that's a common question I get is, where do these bad bacteria come from?
Everywhere.
Everywhere, literally everywhere.
And they're unavoidable. Like,
right.
But our bodies are made to be able to combat the bad bacteria if things are in balance.
Exactly. Yep. And so, yeah, the gut is all about balance, and then approaching actually fixing it, like I said, usually comes in phases for most people. Immune support and detox support first in that first phase. And then phase 2 is typically a kill phase. And these phases they vary in length. Some people only need a month of immune support. Some people need 6 months of immune support first before we even talk about killing off any of the bad guys. And there's things that happen if you kill the bacteria off too fast. Some people might be familiar with the term Herxheimer reaction or a detox die-off reaction. Those things happen, and the body can be very stressed and very unnecessarily stressed and overloaded with these toxins if we kill these bacteria and these overgrowths off too fast. So that's why I say I approach it very conservatively. We do the necessary steps to prep the body first before we kill the bad bacteria or whatever it is that's plaguing the person's gut. And then afterwards, after that kill phase, there's a restore phase. And that's where we're doing usually most people, some high inoculation of it's a lot of words. Prebiotics, which are the food for the good bacteria, probiotics, which are the actual bacteria, and then postbiotics. There's a phase where we're doing all 3 of those things, and usually in 1 or 2 different supplements. At the same time, we're replacing all the necessary vitamins and minerals that person needs. I find a lot of people are vitamin D deficient, magnesium deficient, vitamin B12 deficient, in a lot of cases, iron deficient as well. So all the while we're replacing these things. And eventually, once the gut heals, a lot of these deficiencies fix themselves, and they don't have to be on long-term supplementation. Yeah, it's incredible.
That's amazing. So when you do a consultation with someone and you suggest the supplementations, all those things, do you also make recommendations diet-wise?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have a friend, one of my best friends is a nutritionist, and we go down some rabbit trails talking about all of these things. So is that eventually the goal for you? We don't want long-term supplementation. We would like to be able to find some sort of homeostasis and manage this diet-wise.
Yep.
You'd say that?
Word.
Okay.
Word. Yeah. We like homeostasis.
I was in nursing school one time years and years ago.
That's awesome. Yeah, that is absolutely the goal. The goal is for people to be able to manage their health, not with supplementation for the rest of their life. That's what the conventional model does, right? The conventional model says, hey, give your rights and your health over to me, and I'll just give you pills and injections for the rest of your life, and you'll be fine. That's
a quick fix,
right?
Quote unquote, right?
And that's not what we want for the patient. We don't want them, and they don't want. Like they tell me every day, I don't want to be stuck in this gerbil wheel or hamster wheel of.
It is, because once you start one thing, there's always some sort of side effect that leads to the next thing. I feel like once, for a long-term medication standpoint, there's always side effects.
There is. Yeah, there is. And getting back to the diet, I really help people try to shift their mindset about what they're eating, from just eating food for enjoyment or eating food for even fuel, because food is absolutely fuel for our bodies, right? We can't live without it. But when we look at food from the standpoint of being not just fuel and not just enjoyment either, like we can enjoy good food, right? Like it doesn't have to be sugar.
I think we overcomplicate it.
It doesn't have to be sugar filled and processed for us to enjoy it. But when we view food from the perspective of being a healing medicine for us, right? Food as medicine. When we view it from that perspective, then, and we have fixed our gut and we have allowed our body to heal itself, like it's, when we fix the gut, then the hormones reset and will naturally come back into balance, and the blood pressure will come down. And when we focus on the gut and we do the right lifestyle things around it, the body knows what to do. We remove what's inflammatory, we give it the support it needs for the short term, and then the body knows what to do. We were innately designed to be able to heal that way, right?
How about that?
Yes, exactly.
The body does what it's supposed to do.
Yes, it does. But you have to take those steps to get rid of what's keeping it from doing that. And
Yes.
when we think about food, we have to begin to view it. And this takes time. This took me years to figure out, and then years to like actually adopt and begin to daily put into practice for myself. But when we view food as medicine and we view the vegetables that we eat, and even the quality of the food that we're eating, right? Not just the run-of-the-mill stuff from the store, but when we start to look into, certain grass-fed meats, or even just locally raised things versus the food lot things that we get from the store, or
Right.
organic vegetables and fruit versus just the traditional stuff that isn't cared for as well, right? And may have
Yes.
toxins and things on them. When we start to really view food as medicine, that begins to change everything for us. And then we fix the gut, we fix our bodies as best as we possibly can, and then we let food be our medicine rather than having to be on supplements forever and ever and ever, right? That's the
Yes.
goal. That's the goal.
Right.
And I had to do it for myself first, before I could lead anyone else through it. Right. I had to walk through, man, it was a slow walk. I tell you what,
Well, it's a process.
it was. Yeah, definitely. And when you're suffering with chronic symptoms and trying to do this, it's just so much harder, but I'm so glad that the Lord allowed me to go through all of that, because I can now, like, I don't think I would be able to lead people through it nearly as well now if I had.
No, you have that very firsthand perspective, and you can you're already very good at relating to people, but you've been where they are. That, I think, is that's a game changer.
It is. Yeah. I really think it is. It gives me a place of compassion and empathy that I
Yes.
don't think I would have if I hadn't walked through it myself. But it's a slow walk, healing your gut, healing your nervous system, allowing the body, giving the body time to heal. It's a slow journey, but it's worth the investment. It's worth the effort. It's worth the time. And it's worth everything that you have to give to it to be able to be well, so that you can be with your kids and keep up with them and have energy and feel good and just enjoy life and live abundantly. Right?
Absolutely. And I think the older that I get, I realize obviously I appreciate being healthy, but the older that I get and I start having some aches and pains and I didn't sleep last night, I'm like, man, you really, really appreciate it more, I think, as you get older. Or when you've gone through something when you weren't as healthy as you could be. So it is a process. What do you, in your opinion, what do you think the future is for functional medicine? Because I know we talked about it's kind of starting to get some traction, we think. We hope.
Yeah.
What do you see that? Do you see it becoming more mainstream, or how do you picture that? Or what do you hope for?
Yeah. I really hope that it's made so much more accessible and available to more people. I really do. The problem, and at least in my area here in the Midwest, that I find is that people, the biggest hurdle and the biggest obstacle to functional medicine and finding a practitioner that will even approach it from that perspective is money. A lot of times it's $1,000 or more to get in to see someone. And then, it's because the conventional insurance and things like that don't really recognize a lot of functional practitioners or even alternative diagnostic testing and things like that. They don't recognize that as something that they're willing to pay for if it's outside of the conventional model. And so patients are having to pay these things out of their pocket. And that is the number one biggest hurdle for people, is finding something that's accessible financially for them, finding someone that's accessible even in their area, or that's willing to do a virtual, consult with them. Which is
because that's what you do, right? You do.
That's what I do majority of the time. Yeah, I do have a handful of little, maybe 10 or so people locally to me, who I know through church or our homeschool co-op or something like that. But majority of the time I am seeing people just like this through Zoom, virtually, and finding someone a lot of times is one of the biggest hurdles. And then being able to afford what they're offering is the next biggest hurdle. So I actually didn't get the GI map when I was initially wanting to. I had to wait like 6 months or more. And I really wish I could have gotten it right away. But, it was for us, it's not an expensive test. It's only about $300. It's not expensive. But for us at the time, we just didn't have that. And I wasn't able to prioritize that well enough to be able to afford it right away. So that can be a hurdle for people. But the biggest thing for me was I wish I could have gotten to it sooner. And the person that I worked with, my friend Teresa, she was fabulous and she was patient and she was, great through all of it for me. But there's a lot of people that I get asking, like, can I just have my doctor order it and then they read it for me? And I mean, they can order it if they want, but you have to be trained to know what these different bacteria do, what these different levels mean, what, how to look for leaky gut, how to find all these things. Like there's an actual like certification process behind it, that allows you to be able to read it properly. You don't just,
it's a specialist.
You don't just want somebody to order a test for you and then just, okay, well, I have this, but now I don't know what to do. Right.
Right.
So,
because doctors don't know everything. They are our specialists to read certain tests and things. Yeah. And they can't know everything.
Exactly. It's been really neat. I've had a couple patients now who have done the GI map with me and then taken their results to their primary doctor or their OB or, whatever practitioner they're seeing, and they'll share them with them and they'll share my notes with them. And these doctors are like, this is incredible. Like I had no idea this even existed or that this was an option. And these people are getting better. They're getting better. Their symptoms are improving. They're getting better. And so these doctors are just like, tell me more.
I love that approach.
Right?
I love that attitude.
The future of functional medicine, I really think we're going to see more and more people realizing that this is a way to fill some of the gaps that conventional medicine leaves for people who are really seeking wellness, true wellness, right?
Yes.
I don't believe that you have to camp out on one side or the other. You don't have to say, I'm just doing functional medicine or I'm just doing conventional medicine, right? There's a blend that can be achieved if I'm not, like I said earlier on the podcast, I will refer people out if I have to, right? If there's something outside of my scope or something the patient's not comfortable with and they want to approach it differently, then absolutely. I have a network of conventional docs and people that I can refer them out to, and I'm happy to do that. But there is a both and approach, right? You can absolutely approach your wellness from both sides and just kind of pick and choose what suits you and what is going to serve you the best in your wellness. And that, right? You as the patient will know that even better than the practitioner does. So looking into the future, I'm hoping that functional medicine becomes, and that root cause approach becomes more of a mainstream thing. But on the heels of that, I just don't know how mainstream it will ever be.
Right.
And if I'm just being can I be completely honest here?
Go there.
Okay. If
I don't censor here.
I really think it has to do with the fact that it's not a big moneymaker. We
know who funds the medical industry.
Yeah. It's not a big moneymaker. It's not meant, the functional model is not meant to keep patients for life. Okay. At least my functional model. Okay. So there's probably some practitioners out there who, really, really would like to keep a patient population around. Right. I really want to see people truly heal and then be done with it. Right. Be able to manage their wellness with their daily habits and not have to be a patient forever. And that's health freedom, right? That's freedom that we should work towards and should walk towards. And I really don't think functional medicine will ever become truly mainstream because of that, because it's not generating billions and hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue, because it's not designed to keep the patient sick. It's designed to make them truly well.
Yeah.
So if anything, we might see more more censoring of it. I don't know. It's hard.
Unfortunately, you're probably right.
It's hard to have that crystal ball,
Right. Yeah.
But all the while, I'm just going to stay here I'm going to stay in my lane, and I'm going to keep
There you go.
what I know works for people, and
yes,
practicing from my convictions. And that's what's, to me, that's what's most important. Really serving the patient well and practicing from my convictions. So
yeah, well, that's all you can do,
Yeah, absolutely.
So if we have people listening who are interested in trying to find a functional practitioner near them, what are your suggestions? Are there resources out there to find someone locally, or?
Honestly, there's probably a network somewhere that I'm not privy to, that I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge, big networker. I have a lot of people that I talk to every day and that I work with, but there's probably groups and things out there, or resources. And if I find that, I'll let your listeners know for sure. But one of the best things you can do is, people are welcome to contact me. I'm happy for them to do that.
Well, that was my next thing. Let's tell people where they can, how they can get in touch with you and follow along.
Sure. If you want to put my email or my Instagram in the show notes, that would be great. I'm happy for people to contact me. But I will just say, from some other podcasts I've been on recently, I have an influx of emails,
which is amazing. That's a great problem to have. Yeah,
it's incredible. But I want, I pay attention to each one, right? I answer each message. I personally will get back to each email, and
you have no team. You are the team.
It's me. And my number one job is, to be a wife and a mom, and our homeschool our kids. So that's what gets the majority of my attention. But I do have the afternoons typically that I devote to working and to answering emails and to seeing patients and stuff like that. So it's a fine dance, and it's not perfect most days, but it is something that I'm absolutely just in love with and passionate about. So I make time for it. But I do have, I guess you would call it, a waiting list. I haven't officially called it that yet, but so I am working through these things. And so I don't even know how long people would necessarily have to wait, maybe just a couple weeks to see me.
Which is not bad. I feel like even if you go to your conventional doctor, there's a little bit of a wait if it's not an emergent situation. So.
Right. So I'm just, my schedule is a little fluid at this point, trying to figure out how to deal with the influx of interest and the influx of people. But I am trying to get to people as soon as I possibly can. So I would be more than happy for people to reach out to me. And if I can't serve you, then I have other people who can. I have other practitioners that I work with who even have trained me and, might be able to serve them a little bit better or something like that I can refer you to. So,
yeah, you're a great resource. Christy is very well connected in this community. And I think this is really going to resonate with a lot of people. At least, my friends group, we have this conversation quite frequently.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Okay, so your business is called Grace Life Wellness.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the information will be in the show notes. Is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with before we sign out?
Oh, that's a good question. It could be a lot of things, but I would say, just to echo what I've already said, which is that this is one of the best investments you can make in your entire life, is into your wellness and into your health. And, instead of just looking at symptoms and trying to symptom manage, really try to maybe shift your mindset to thinking about what's causing these symptoms in the first place, being more aware of that for yourself and your own body, and then seeking those answers to figuring out how, what's at the root of this, and then how do we fix it? Those questions that I asked myself have literally changed my entire life. I would not be in this place, be able to do this, if I hadn't asked those questions for myself. So that's what I would leave them with.
Incredible advice to leave on. Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining me here today. It's always good to talk to you. And
it's a pleasure.
Yes. All right. Hope you have a great day.
You too.